Welcome back, everybody. We're diving into a case today that takes us to Farmersburg, Indiana.
Farmersburg, Indiana.
Yeah, a small town.
Very small.
It's so small you could blink and miss it driving through.
Exactly.
But don't let that fool you. Back in 1981, this quiet community became the center of a mystery that has haunted investigators and locals for decades.
You know what I think is so captivating about these small town cases is that the ripples of a crime like this, they spread so much wider than in, say, like a big city.
Right.
You know, it's not just an anonymous incident. It's a shared experience that casts a long shadow over everyone.
I think that's a great point. I mean, it's like the whole town becomes part of the story.
Exactly.
And the story that we're diving into today is the unsolved murder of Janette Benson.
Benson.
On January 2nd, 1981, Janette was found murdered in her home.
Mm-hmm.
And what initially seemed like a simple burglary gone wrong quickly became so much more complex.
Yeah. You know, the initial assumption with a burglary turned violent is often that it was random.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of opportunity, wrong place, wrong time.
Uh-huh.
But as we're going to see, the details of this case paint a much more nuanced picture.
I think that to really understand this case, you have to picture Farmersburg.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking rural Indiana,
rural
a
Indiana.
town where life moves a little slower.
Mm.
Folks wave to their neighbors.
Yeah.
And you'd think violent crime is, something that happens somewhere else.
Right.
That's what makes Janette's story so unsettling.
It really shatters that sense of security.
Yeah.
You know, that idea that it can't happen here.
Right.
And it's that disruption, I think, that makes these cases linger in the public consciousness for so long.
Yeah, I agree. Janette and her husband Emery were what you'd call pillars of the community.
Okay.
They'd raised their kids in Farmersburg. Janette was retired.
Okay.
Emery was still working.
Okay.
January 2nd starts like any other day for them.
I mean, it's funny how often in these cases, you know, it's the ordinary routines that become the most chilling in retrospect.
Yeah.
She, drove to Terre Haute that day, returned some Christmas gifts, stopped at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Just a completely normal day.
Right.
Until it wasn't.
Emery arrived home from work around 7 p.m.
Okay.
He got dropped off by a coworker
Right.
and right away noticed that Janette's car was parked oddly in the driveway.
Oh.
And then he sees that their small TV is missing from the kitchen.
Not a good sign.
Not a good sign at all.
Right. And at this point, it's just that unsettling feeling that something's not right.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that he got dropped off by his coworker.
Right.
Imagine that coworker driving away completely oblivious to the horror that's unfolding inside.
Oh, yeah. So as Emery walks through the house calling for Janette, he finds their bedroom completely ransacked.
Oh, wow.
Drawers are empty, clothes are scattered everywhere.
So this wasn't just a quick grab and go.
No.
Whoever was in their home was looking for something specific or sending a message.
Right, or both.
Yeah.
And tragically, it gets worse.
Okay.
Emery's neighbor, Fred,
Right.
helps him search the house.
Yeah.
And they find Janette's body in a spare bedroom.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a devastating discovery for them, especially in a tight-knit town like this.
Yeah. And that shared trauma, that collective shock, is what really sets these cases apart.
Yeah.
It's not just a family grieving, it's a whole community that's struggling to make sense of the unthinkable.
Right. And adding to the mystery, aside from the TV and some cash, it seems like very little else was taken.
Really?
So if robbery was the motive, why not take more?
That's exactly what investigators had to grapple with.
Yeah.
Was it a robbery gone wrong?
Right.
A staged scene to mislead them? Or something else entirely?
Right.
The crime scene itself held some potential answers.
Okay, so the front door was kicked in,
Right.
leaving a clear shoe print next to the handle.
Okay.
And they found matching prints outside in the fresh snow.
Interesting. So a single set of footprints would suggest a lone perpetrator.
Right.
But it also means that they weren't concerned about leaving such obvious evidence. Were they confident,
Right.
careless, or trying to send a very specific message?
That's a good point. But it's the scene inside the house that's most puzzling.
Okay.
Janette was still wearing her coat,
Oh, wow.
clutching a sack of potatoes in one hand and her keys in the other.
You know, it's a detail like that that speaks to the suddenness and brutality of the attack.
Yeah.
She was caught completely off guard in a moment of just complete normalcy.
Right.
It raises the question,
Yeah.
did she know her attacker?
Uh-huh.
Or was this a truly random encounter?
That is the question. And that's where I think the focus shifts to potential witnesses.
Right.
In a town as small as Farmersburg, someone had to have seen something.
Especially considering what we know about the timeline.
Yeah.
I mean, she was last seen alive around 4:30 p.m.,
Right.
and Emery found her around 7.
Uh-huh.
That's a fairly narrow window in a place where, everyone knows everyone's comings and goings.
Yeah. And that's where the infamous blue car comes into play.
The blue car.
Yeah.
Okay.
Multiple people reported seeing a light blue car near the Benson home around the time of the murder, but their descriptions don't exactly line up.
Right. It's a classic conundrum in these cases.
Right.
You have these eyewitness accounts that offer these tantalizing leads.
Yeah.
But the details are often fuzzy.
Right.
Recollections can be influenced by everything from, the lighting conditions to the stress of the situation.
Of course. So we have a neighbor who saw a light blue car with a tall, thin young man at the wheel.
Okay.
The school custodian across the street saw a similar car around the same time.
Mm.
And then there's Fred, who saw what he described as an older light blue Chrysler, specifically robin egg blue.
Interesting.
And then there's a passing motorist who noticed a shiny light blue or green car.
Oh, wow.
Even speculated that it might be a new car that the Bensons bought.
Okay.
So are we talking about one car?
Right.
Multiple cars? Or is this a case of mistaken identity fueled by the heightened awareness after the crime?
It's tough to say for sure.
Yeah.
Some details line up while others create more questions than answers.
Right.
Was it truly light blue?
Right.
Or could the witnesses have perceived the color differently under varying lighting or weather conditions?
Yeah.
And how does the age of the car play into this?
All right. Right.
That's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
If we take the custodian and Fred's accounts together,
Mm-hmm.
we have a light blue Chrysler,
Okay.
potentially an older model.
Right.
But then the neighbor describes a younger man driving.
Yeah.
Could that be a son borrowing his parents' car?
Mm-hmm.
Or are we looking at two separate vehicles and potentially two separate individuals?
Right. And those are the questions that investigators were grappling with.
Yeah.
Were they chasing a phantom blue car?
Hmm.
Or was this a crucial piece of the puzzle leading them closer to the truth?
Good question.
We'll dive deeper into those witness accounts and their significance when we return.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the unsolved murder of Janette Benson.
As we pick up the story, investigators are faced with a mix of promising leads and really frustrating dead ends.
Yeah, it was a tough one right from the start.
We've got this blue car mystery, a town that's on edge, and a crime scene that raises more questions than answers.
Right.
And it's 1981, so the forensic tools that we just take for granted today were still in their early stages.
Oh, yeah. Imagine trying to piece together a puzzle with only like half the pieces.
Right.
And those pieces are constantly shifting.
Yeah.
That's the challenge investigators faced back then.
So fingerprints were lifted, but no matches.
Right. DNA analysis was in its infancy back then.
Right.
Required large samples that often weren't available.
Yeah.
So they were relying heavily on good old-fashioned detective work.
Yeah.
Witness statements, building timelines, and trying to establish connections that might lead them to a suspect.
But with the blue car sightings, were they even sure they were looking for one person or multiple people?
Yeah, that was the key question.
Yeah.
If it was one car,
Mm-hmm.
the varying descriptions could be chalked up to, perception, lighting, or even the angle from which each witness saw the vehicle.
Right.
But if those inconsistencies pointed to multiple cars, the scope of the investigation widened significantly.
Yeah, it's like a choose-your-own-adventure mystery, Each path leads to a different set of possibilities, and investigators had to carefully consider each one.
Yeah, they did. But then, a new development threw a wrench into the whole investigation.
Oh, what happened?
A woman came forward claiming to have information about the murder weapon,
Really?
saying she'd taken it on a Greyhound bus out west at the killer's request.
Oh, wow. That could have cracked the case wide open.
If it were true.
If it were true, talk
Yeah.
about a potential bombshell. It's like something you'd see in a movie,
Right.
The killer, desperate to get rid of the evidence, entrusts a stranger with the murder weapon.
Yeah. And there's this psychological element at play here, too.
What do you mean?
Well, for someone involved in a crime, distance can create a sense of separation,
Uh-huh.
a way to distance themselves from the act itself.
I can see that.
So having someone else dispose of the weapon might feel like a way to lessen their guilt or involvement.
Oh, that makes sense, but then why would this woman come forward?
That's the million-dollar question.
Was she trying to help?
Yeah,
Seeking notoriety?
possibly.
Or was there something more sinister at play?
Investigators had to consider all possibilities.
Yeah, I bet. You can't take anything at face value in these situations.
Exactly. And in this instance, the woman's story unraveled pretty quickly.
Really?
They gave her a polygraph test,
Okay.
and the results were pretty conclusive.
Nah.
She was lying.
Oh, wow.
The whole tale was a fabrication.
So back to square one.
Back to square one.
And now they had another mystery on their hands.
Right.
Why would someone make up such an elaborate lie about a murder investigation?
It's a question that probably haunts investigators to this day.
I bet.
Was she trying to protect someone?
Mm.
Throw the investigation off track?
Uh-huh.
Or was it something more personal, like a vendetta against the person she claims was the killer?
Yeah, it's impossible to know for sure.
Right. But whatever her reasons, it wasted precious time and resources and potentially hindered the investigation's progress.
That's so frustrating.
It's a reminder that sometimes the biggest obstacles in these cases come from unexpected sources.
Absolutely.
And as the months turned into years, the initial flurry of activity around the case died down.
Yeah.
Leads went cold.
Right.
Witnesses' memories faded.
Uh.
And the trail seemed to just disappear into the vastness of time.
Yeah, but Janette's story wasn't forgotten.
Luckily not, no.
In 2014, a new sheriff took office in Sullivan County.
Okay.
A man with a passion for cold cases and a belief that every victim deserves justice no matter how much time has passed.
I loved that.
Sheriff Clark Codum.
Sheriff Codum.
He had a reputation for being meticulous, for leaving no stone unturned.
Wow.
He pulled Janette's file, that thick stack of reports and evidence, and started from the beginning, determined to see if a fresh perspective could uncover something new.
It's remarkable how someone coming in with fresh eyes can sometimes see things that were missed before.
I agree. So, did his approach lead to any significant breakthroughs?
Well, he meticulously reviewed every detail, every witness statement, every piece of evidence.
Okay.
And he also took a closer look at those 3 young men who'd been on the radar of the original investigation.
The ones known for petty theft and burglaries around him.
Exactly, the ones with the blue car.
Oh, right.
One of the young men's mothers did indeed own a blue car.
Oh, okay.
And they'd been seen driving around town around the time of Janette's murder.
So it was circumstantial.
Very much so, yeah.
But did anything concrete link these young men to the crime scene?
No fingerprints, no DNA.
Right, this was before Touch DNA.
Exactly.
But there was one intriguing piece of information.
Oh, what's that?
A witness had overheard one of the young men making a strange comment.
Oh, really?
While they were driving near the Benson house just days before the murder.
What did they say?
He was driving recklessly, doing donuts in a field.
Okay.
And the girl with him told him to stop because someone might call the cops.
Yeah.
And he laughed and said, "We don't have to worry about her calling."
Oh, wow, that's chilling.
Yeah, I know it's vague, but the timing and the location are unsettling, to say the least.
Very much so. And for Sheriff Codum, it was enough to raise some serious suspicions.
Yeah.
He wanted to know more about these young men,
Uh-huh.
their whereabouts on the day of the murder,
Huh.
their possible motives.
Right, but before he could delve deeper into that avenue of the investigation, something happened that shook the community to its core
Oh,
and added another layer of complexity to this case.
what happened?
Just 6 months after Janette's murder,
Okay.
one of those young men died in a tragic accident at a local park.
Oh, wow.
He was with friends, goofing off late at night at the lake.
And he fell from the high dive, hitting his head on the platform below. Oh my gosh, what are the chances?
It sounds like a horrible accident, but the timing is just so eerie.
Yeah, was this truly an unfortunate coincidence, or was there something more to it?
I mean, rumors started swirling almost immediately.
Really?
Yeah, people whispered that the young man was about to confess to Janette's murder,
Oh, wow.
that he was silenced before he could reveal the truth.
Oh, gosh. You know, it's the kind of speculation that thrives in small towns.
Yeah.
Where everyone knows everyone,
Uh.
and secrets are hard to keep.
But did Sheriff Codum buy into those rumors?
He was skeptical, as any good investigator should be.
Of course.
You know, he knew that rumors could be as dangerous as any weapon,
Right.
potentially derailing the investigation and leading to false conclusions.
So he dug deeper, trying to separate fact from fiction?
Exactly. He re-interviewed the surviving suspect who was with the victim that night.
The one who jumped in the water to try and save his friend.
Yeah, he meticulously examined the evidence, the location, the witness statements,
Yeah.
and his conclusion challenged the popular narrative.
Really? What did he think happened?
He believed the death was In all likelihood, a tragic accident.
Really?
Yeah, the young men had been drinking, they were horsing around,
Yeah.
and one of them made a fatal mistake.
So there was no indication of foul play?
None. No evidence to support the theory that he was pushed or forced off the high dive.
It's a sobering reminder that sometimes even the most suspicious circumstances can have a simple explanation.
A heartbreaking one.
Yeah, but did that completely rule out those young men as suspects in Janette's case?
Not entirely, no.
Right, because of the blue car.
The coincidence was hard to ignore, and the shadow of that unanswered question lingered.
Yeah.
Even if the young man's death was accidental, it didn't negate the other circumstantial evidence.
Right.
The blue car, the suspicious comment, their history of petty crime.
So Sheriff Codum was left with a puzzle that was even more complex than before. A potential suspect was dead.
Yeah.
But the questions surrounding his involvement remained.
And the clock was ticking. Time was the enemy in this case.
Yeah.
Eroding memories, scattering evidence,
Right.
making it increasingly difficult to find the truth.
But Sheriff Codum wasn't ready to give up.
No, he knew that advancements in forensic technology might offer new hope.
Okay.
A chance to re-examine old evidence with fresh eyes.
We're talking about the era of DNA analysis becoming increasingly sophisticated.
Exactly. In particular, a technique called touch DNA was starting to revolutionize forensic investigations.
Touch DNA?
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, touch DNA can extract a profile from just a few skin cells left behind on an object.
Oh, wow.
A doorknob.
Uh-huh.
A weapon.
Hmm.
Even a coin.
It sounds like something out of science fiction.
I know, it's really cool.
We leave these invisible traces of ourselves everywhere we go.
Everywhere.
And something as small as a fingerprint could hold the key to solving a decades-old mystery.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It really is. It's a testament to how far forensic science has come. And for Sheriff Codum, it presented a really tantalizing possibility.
It did.
Remember those coins found at the crime scene?
The ones investigators believe the killer dropped as he fled.
Yeah, the ones near the front door.
Those very coins.
And what about them?
Sheriff Codum had a hunch they might hold the answer.
Really?
He figured if the killer had handled those coins, there was a chance, however slim, that his DNA might still be there, just waiting to be discovered.
So it was a long shot?
A long shot, but a shot worth taking.
It's incredible to think about the possibility that after all these years, the answer could be found on something as mundane as a few coins.
Right. It really highlights the importance of preserving evidence, even in cases that seem unsolvable.
Yeah.
You never know what advancements in technology might reveal.
That's true.
So in 2018, with a mix of hope and trepidation, Sheriff Codum sent those coins to a specialized lab for touch DNA analysis.
It must have been an agonizing wait for those results.
I'm sure it was.
So did the coins reveal the killer's identity?
Unfortunately, no. The lab report delivered a crushing blow. There was insufficient DNA material on the coins to generate a usable profile.
So it seems that time, that relentless force, had degraded the DNA beyond recovery.
It had. It was a setback, but not the end of the road.
There's a resilience to these investigators.
Definitely.
A refusal to give up even when the odds are stacked against them.
They have to balance hope with realism, knowing that not every case will be solved.
Right.
But every effort is a step towards justice.
So with the DNA analysis coming up empty, where does Sheriff Codum turn next?
He went back to the basics, revisiting the witness statements, the timelines, those nagging inconsistencies surrounding the blue car.
Right.
There had to be something there, some thread that had been overlooked.
Was there anything specific that stood out to him?
Well,
we're back, and I have to admit, even with all these technological advancements, it's frustrating to hear those DNA results came back empty.
it is a setback. Yeah. But not necessarily the end of the road.
I guess that's true.
Think about it this way.
Yeah.
Even without a DNA match, the fact that they were able to attempt touch DNA analysis on a case from 1981,
Right.
that's pretty remarkable in itself.
That's a good point. It really shows just how far forensic science has come.
It does.
And gives hope for other cold cases out there.
Yeah, definitely.
But with that avenue sort of closed off for now, where does that leave Sheriff Codum and the investigation into Janette Benson's murder?
Well, he's not one to give up easily.
I gathered that.
He realized that sometimes the key to solving a case isn't hidden in a lab,
Okay.
but in the memories of those who lived through it.
So he turned to the public hoping to jog someone's memory.
Exactly.
It's amazing how a single detail, something seemingly insignificant, can crack a case wide open.
Absolutely. We often underestimate the power of collective memory.
Yeah.
Someone out there might have a piece of information they don't even realize is important.
Right.
Could be something they saw, something they overheard,
Right.
or even a gut feeling they dismissed at the time.
And in a case like this where there's so many unanswered questions, even the smallest detail could be crucial.
For sure.
So did Sheriff Codum focus on any specific aspects of the case when he appealed to the public?
Well, he knew that relying solely on faded memories from decades ago was a long shot.
Yeah.
So he focused on a piece of physical evidence that had remained a mystery since the beginning.
The shoe print.
The shoe print.
The one on the front door and outside in the snow.
That's right.
Okay.
Sheriff Codum reasoned that someone, somewhere, might recognize that shoe print. Could be someone who owned a similar pair of shoes back in the early 80s.
Okay.
A shoe salesman who remembers a distinctive style, or even someone who remembers seeing someone wearing those shoes around the time of the murder.
Yeah, like a visual echo from the past.
Exactly.
It's fascinating how a seemingly simple item like a shoe print can hold so much potential.
I know, and he didn't just rely on verbal descriptions. He released photographs of the shoe print to the public, hoping a visual cue might spark a memory or a connection.
That's a good idea. Did anyone come forward with information about the shoe print?
There were some leads, but nothing that led to a definitive match.
Bro, okay.
However, Sheriff Codum's efforts to reignite the investigation did have a ripple effect far beyond Farmersburg.
Really? How so?
Well, the case was featured on podcasts, documentaries.
Like this one?
Exactly. And even a segment on a popular true crime TV show.
Wow.
And with each new exposure, the hope was that someone, somewhere, would finally have the courage to come forward and share what they knew.
Yeah, it's a testament to the enduring power of these stories, how they capture our imagination and make us want to see justice served.
It is. And for Janette's family, that hope is what kept them going.
Yeah.
They haven't given up, and they've been tireless advocates for their mother, keeping her memory alive and pushing for answers.
I can't imagine what they've been through.
It's heartbreaking.
The years of unanswered questions, the wondering, the not knowing.
They've attended countless court hearings.
Wow.
Met with investigators, and spoken publicly about their loss.
Really?
Sharing their memories of their mother and their unwavering determination to find the truth.
Their strength and resilience are inspiring.
They are.
It's a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, the human spirit can endure and the pursuit of justice can continue no matter how much time has passed.
Absolutely.
So where does the case stand today?
The case officially remains open, but there haven't been any significant breakthroughs in recent years.
Okay.
The lack of DNA evidence and the passage of time have made things incredibly challenging.
Right.
However, that doesn't mean the case is closed.
It sounds like there's still hope.
There's always hope. You know, cases like this often hinge on one crucial piece of information. One person coming forward with a detail they didn't realize was important.
So what can our listeners do to help?
Well, if someone out there has information, even if they think it's irrelevant, they should contact the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office and the Indiana State Police.
Okay, and they are still actively seeking leads on this case.
They are.
We'll make sure to include their contact information in the show notes.
Perfect.
It's amazing how even after all these years, a single phone call could be the one that finally brings answers and closure to Janette's family.
It really is.
It's a reminder that behind every cold case file, behind every unsolved murder, there are real people whose lives have been irrevocably changed.
And for those families, finding the truth isn't just about justice.
Right.
It's about healing. It's about reclaiming a sense of peace, and it's about ensuring that their loved one isn't forgotten.
So to anyone listening who might have information about the unsolved murder of Janette Benson, please don't stay silent.
Your call could be the one that finally brings this decades-long mystery to a close.
Well, we've reached the end of another deep dive, and as we conclude this complex and heartbreaking case,
We're left with more questions than answers.
but one thing remains clear.
Janette Benson deserves justice.
And her family deserves closure.
And until those are achieved, the search for the truth will continue.